study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 28. This chapter is entitled Puranjana Becomes a Woman in the Next Life. And today's verse is verse number 22. Okay? Evam Pripanaya Buddhya Sujantam Atar Arhanam Grahitum Kritatirinam Vayanama Vyapajita Evam Pripanaya Buddhya Sujantam Atar Arhanam Grahitum Kritatirinam Vayanam Vyapajita Thus, Kripanaya, by miserly, Buddhya, intelligence, Sochantam, lamenting, Atat-taranam, on which he should not have lamented, Grahitum, in order to arrest, Kritati, the determined king of the Yamas, Enam, him, Vayanama, whose name was Fear, Abhayapajita, came there immediately. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Although King Puranjan should not have lamented over the fate of his wife and children, he nonetheless did so due to his miserly intelligence. In the meantime, Yavanaraj, whose name was Fear itself, immediately drew near to arrest him. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Foolish people do not know that every individual soul is responsible for his own actions and reactions in life. As long as a living entity in the form of a child or boy is innocent, father and mother to lead him into a proper understanding of the values of life. When a child is grown, it should be left up to him to execute the duties of life properly. The parent, after his death, cannot help his child. A father may leave some estate for his children's immediate help, but he should not be overly absorbed in thoughts of how his family will survive after his death. This is the disease of the conditioned soul. Not only does he commit sinful activities for his own sense gratification, but he accumulates great wealth to leave behind so that his children may also gorgeously arrange for sense gratification. In any case, everyone is afraid of death, and therefore death is called Bhaya, or fear. Although King Puranjana was engaged in thinking of his wife and children, death did not wait for him. Death does not wait for any man. It will immediately carry out its duty. Since death must take away the living entity without hesitation, it is the ultimate God realization of the atheists who spoiled their lives thinking of country, society, and relatives to the neglect of God consciousness. In this verse, the word atat adhanam is very significant, for it means that one should not be overly engaged in welfare activities for one's family members, countrymen, society, and community. None of these will help a person to advance spiritually. Unfortunately, in present-day society, so-called educated men have no idea what spiritual progress is. Although they have the opportunity in the human form of life to make spiritual progress, they remain misers. They use their lives improperly and simply waste them thinking about the material welfare of their relatives, countrymen, society, and so on. One's actual duty is to learn how to conquer death. Lord Krishna states the process of conquering death in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, 9th shloka. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatpata jatva deham punarjanma naiti ma meti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. After giving up this body, one who is fully Krishna conscious does not accept another material body, but returns home, back to God. Everyone should try to attain this perfection. Unfortunately, instead of doing so, people are absorbed in thoughts of society, friendship, love, and relatives. This Krishna consciousness movement, however, is educating people throughout the world and informing them how to conquer death. One cannot conquer death without taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, although King Puranjana should not have lamented over the fate of his wife and children at the time of his passing, He nonetheless did so, and it's explained that he did so because of his miserly consciousness. What does it mean, miserly consciousness? A miser is someone who's only thinking of himself. He's collecting money, he's hoarding, he's doing everything for his own benefit or for the benefit of his immediate family members. So this is a miserly consciousness. So someone who's concerned about his immediate family only and not every living entity has a miserly consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, we are taught not to have a miserly consciousness, but to have an all-encompassing Krishna consciousness. So Krishna consciousness means several things. One, it means to be conscious of Krishna. But even more than that, it means to have a similar consciousness to Krishna, a similar outlook, a similar perspective. Which means that since Krishna is the well-wisher of every living entity, we must also be the well-wisher of every living entity. The last shloka of the Bhagavatam, chapter 5, Bhoktaram Jagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatnamam Shanti Prichati. Not only do we have to know that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer of all yajnas, not only do we have to be aware that he is the controller of every living entity and every planet and everything in the entire existence, but Krishna is also the well-wisher of every living entity. And for us to become Krishna conscious, we also have to become the well-wisher of every living entity. And if we do, if we understand this shloka, then Shanti Richati. If we can understand this, we will attain peace. Peace means no anxiety, no stress, na sochati, na kankshati, no lamentation, no unfulfilled desires. So we have to come to this platform of spirit soul. As spirit soul, we recognize everyone else as spirit soul. When I see myself as spirit soul, then I see everybody else as spirit soul also. Atmavat manyate jagat. As I see myself, that's how I see the entire universe. So, if I see myself as the body, I see everyone else as the body also. Now, if you look at it from the other perspective, if I'm seeing other people as the body, it means that I'm on the bodily concept of life, that I'm seeing myself as the body. And I'm not seeing myself as spirit soul. Seeing myself as spirit soul means Brahma Bhuta. I'm on the platform of Atma Tattva, Brahma Jnana. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. And when I'm on that level, then I'm blissful, Prasanatma. I'm joyful. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. Nasochati Nakamshati. Then I'm never unhappy, I'm never lamenting, I'm not full of desires. Samaksareshu Bhuteshu, because I see everyone with equal vision. Equal vision means I see everyone as spirit soul. I see everyone as engaged in service to Krishna. Mad bhaktin paramam, mad bhaktin lavate param. And in such a consciousness, I attain devotional service to Krishna, the supreme gain, the supreme benefit, the supreme benediction. That's when we actually enter into devotional service. So in this class, what we want to do is we want to smash some of the misconceptions that are rampant in this society. One of them is that we're performing devotional service. As Krishna has explained, performing devotional service means we're at the Brahma-Bhuta platform. It means we're experiencing prasanatma. It means we're seeing everyone as spirit soul with equal vision. There's no angry, no lamenting. That means we're performing devotional service. If we're not experiencing that, we're not performing devotional service. Then what are we performing? Who knows? Sadhana bhakti. What is sadhana bhakti? We have to know the meaning. It's not just a word. What is the meaning? It means practicing. We're practicing how to do devotional service. I like to give the example of a musician because since my mother sent me for music lessons since I was a child. So I know this field of music. In the beginning when I went for violin lessons, I was not a violinist. I was practicing and it didn't sound very good. No one was interested to hear me practicing. But after many, many years, I got good at it. And people would like to hear me play. So there's a difference between practicing the violin and playing the violin. There's a difference between practicing devotional service and actually performing devotional service. So when are we going to actually start performing devotional service? When are we going to actually come to this platform of Brahma-Bhuta? When are we going to give up our miserly consciousness? When are we going to start seeing everybody as spirit soul? Now this chapter is called Puranjan becomes a woman in the next life. So I want to clear up another misconception. In this chapter, in this canto, Narada Muni is preaching to King Prachina Parishat, and he's not teaching the bodily concept of life. He's not preaching you're a man, and the next life you're going to become a woman. He's teaching Brahma-Bhuta Prasanatma. He's teaching Krishna consciousness, that whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, it's all illusion. But if we're thinking, she's a woman, he's a man, this is called the bodily concept of life. And it means that I'm in the bodily concept of life. Atmavad Amrita Jagat. Now how long will it take before I actually begin to realize that I am spirit soul? Well, one way is to practice that I am spirit soul. Practice seeing everyone as spirit soul. By practicing that, that's called sadhana bhakti. Then I come to that understanding. By treating everyone as spirit soul, I come to that understanding. This is the meaning of sadhana bhakti. Practicing the teachings. Not just going through the motions, but actually putting into practice in my moment-to-moment daily life the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the teachings of Sri Krishna, the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, the teachings of Bhagavatam, the teachings of Sri Prabhu. Not just talking about it, but actually being there. So, if we're seeing that 50% of the population are women and other 50% are men, we're on the bodily concept of life. Now, how did Prabhupada relate to this? We see sometimes in his shlokas he refers to women. But Prabhupada explained, if you study Prabhupada's books, he explained, and Prabhupada's classes and his letters, he explains that women means spirit souls of the bodily concept of life. Men means also the bodily concept of life. But we are not to consider each other like that. We consider each other as Vaishnavis and Vaishnavas. A Vaishnavi is not a woman. She's on the process following Bhakti Yoga, should be considered as spirit soul. The same with the men. They should be considered as Vaishnavas, spirit souls. But if we see them as we see people in material consciousness, then we cannot see. We are blind. We have advisory consciousness. So we should be able to distinguish who is on the bodily concept of life and who is on the path of transcendence. So everyone who's taken to this path of Krishna consciousness in the beginning is on the path of transcendence. And Prabhupada said that when you're on the path of transcendence, you're cleansing your consciousness, purifying your consciousness, your understanding that I am spirit soul and we see everyone else as spirit soul. And he gave the example that when you're taking a bath, when you're cleaning yourself, no one should criticize that you're dirty. So we are taking the internal bath. The internal bath is by chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So we should be becoming purified. We should be becoming cleansed so that we're seeing each other as spirit soul. Now, because we should be at least on the Madhyam platform of devotional service. Now, the Uttama Adhikaris, they see everybody as spirit soul. They see the animals as spirit soul. They see the karmis as spirit soul. But we should at the very least see all the devotees as spirit soul. So Narada Muni is preaching this to Prachina Parishad. He's not saying, don't become a woman in your next life. He's preaching to him to come to the absolute platform of seeing everyone as spirit soul. This is a misconception in our movement that we're men or we're women and that this body is like this, that body is like that. We're not seeing them as spirit soul. Prabhupada says this is the disease of the conditioned soul. This is the disease of the conditioned soul. So if we're still the conditioned soul after 5 years, that's not very good. If we're still the conditioned soul after 10 years of Bhakti Yoga, that's worse. If we're still suffering the disease of the conditioned soul after 20 years, that's very bad. And if we're still suffering the disease of the conditioned soul after 40 years, then we're simply a hamster. What do I mean by a hamster? Well, if you've ever gone into the pet shop, you see the hamster on the wheel. He's going like this, working very hard, but going nowhere. He's staying in the same place. And the wheel is going round and round. What do we call that wheel? Samsara. Samsara Davanala Vidaloka. It burns like fire. Birth after birth after birth. And Prabhupada explains that in this life you're in the male body, and in the next life you're in the female body. And in the male body you're thinking like this about the females. And in the next life you're a female, and the females in the next life become males. And then they're getting on your case, and everybody's getting on each other's case. Life after life, birth after birth. So Krishna consciousness means we step back and we take a look at the big picture. We see everything the way Krishna sees it, that we're spirit souls. And because we're on the path of self-realization, in our next life we're not going to become animals. We're going to become, again, human beings striving for perfection, because Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that if you're unsuccessful in this life, you take birth in a very good family to carry on your devotional service. But you may carry on in the opposite body. As a woman, you may carry on as a man, and as a man, you may carry on as a woman. But if you're thinking I'm a man or I'm a woman, you have not understood the first lesson of Bhagavad Gita. That's the very first lesson. We can call this 2 + 2 = 4. That's the first lesson you learn in arithmetic. But first lesson that Krishna teaches in Bhagavad Gita is, you are not this body. If we're still thinking we're the body and relating to each other on the body, then that is not very good. This does not please Prabhu. He wants to see us making advancement. So we have to relate to each other as Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, spirit souls, on the path back home, back to Godhead, due to our corruptive karma in our previous life when we were unsuccessful in devotional service. That's why we came back again. Everybody sitting in this room, in your last life, you were unsuccessful in devotional service. You didn't go back to Godhead. That's why you're here again. And what about the end of this life? What will happen in the next life? Again, you will be sitting here? And the men in a woman's body, and the women in a man's body, and again you'll have this argument about, Sri Dharma, and you should be doing this, that, all this, all these dharmas that Krishna says, Sarva Dharma Parityaja, give it up. Come to the concept of Atma-tattva. Now in the 18th chapter, Krishna says there are certain things you should never give up. But that's at the beginning of the 18th chapter. But at the end of the 18th chapter, he says all these things have to be given up. He describes his teaching in 3 phases. He says to Arjuna, I've given you confidential knowledge. Then I've given you more confidential knowledge. And then in 1864, he says, now I'm going to give you the most confidential knowledge. And the most confidential knowledge is only 2 shlokas. Become the devotee of Krishna, give up all other dharmas, become fully Krishna conscious and surrender. That's the most confidential knowledge. Prabhupada has given us the most confidential knowledge. Lord Chaitanya has given us the most confidential knowledge. If we're not inculcating the most confidential knowledge, then what are we doing here? Are we here just to get the confidential knowledge and not the most confidential? We only want the arithmetic. I'm not interested in the calculus, not interested in the algebra. I'm going to stick with arithmetic. Does that make sense to anybody? We have to actually start seeing each other as Krishna sees us. So in the next life, Ranjana becomes the daughter of Maharaj Vidarbha, and it becomes Vaidarbhi. And she marries a great king, Malayadvaj, and she has a wonderful life. But in the end, Malayadvaj also dies, and Puranjana, who is now Vaidarbhi, she also dies. So Narada Muni is saying that it doesn't matter what body you're in, birth, death, old age, disease, it comes to everybody. So when are we going to learn this? When are we going to actually see each other as spirit soul and preach about surrendering to Krishna? Forget about Varnashram Dharma, that is external. Which now we come to another misconception, and I'm sorry, I told people that it's going to be a controversial class, and if you want to challenge me, you better not listen on the radio, you better come here, so you can raise your hand. Someone who's carrying a stick and wearing saffron is not a sannyasi, according to the definition of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, according to the definition in Bhagavatam, according to the definition of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's only a Varnashram Dharma sannyas. That's only part of Varnashram Dharma. And Krishna doesn't speak about Varnashram Dharma. He speaks about the 4 Varnas, Chatur Varna Maya Shrishta, but he doesn't speak about the 4 ashramas. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam that anyone who surrenders body, mind, and words is a true sannyasi. That means if the women surrender their body, mind, and words to Krishna, they are considered by Krishna to be at the platform of renunciation or sannyas. But we cling to this Varnashram Dharma system. We don't cling to the Guru Varga system taught by the Parampara, brought to us by Krishna, to Arjuna, Lord Chaitanya, six Goswamis, Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Prabhupada. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur tried to preach this to his Bengali disciples, and so he introduced a new concept called Daivi Varnashram. Because in India, everyone understands Varnashram, which is actually the caste system. It's a perverted reflection of the actual understanding. So he said, Daivi Varnashram. Daivi Varnashram means that you are spirit soul and you do the needful. Whatever needs to be done, you do it no matter what your position is, because you're the Das, 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 Anu Das. You're the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. If I'm Das, 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 Anu Das, that means I'm last. What is the meaning of Anu Das, by the way? Who knows the meaning of Anu Das? Das, 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 servant, servant, servant. What's the meaning of Anu Das? Okay, he's on the right track, but what's the English word for that? Someone who follows. What do you call someone who follows? Sorry? A subordinate. Yes, that's good, but even deeper than that, a trainee servant. Or, my favorite word, is apprentice servants. Anudas means we're simply apprentices. We're not the servant yet. Servant is a very high platform to be a servant of God. Das, Das, Das to me means Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, and then Anudas, myself, as an apprentice. Well, the follower of a servant is someone being trained up. That's an apprentice. That's the meaning of the word apprentice. You have such a word in German? Look it up in the English dictionary. See if there's such a word. Yeah, it can be assistant, but it's more. It's a trainee. You're being trained up. Apprenticeship. So we're not even the servant. To be the servant of the Lord, that's the most glorious position you can imagine. But we're being trained up to be that. But how seriously are we accepting the training? How dedicated are we in applying the teachings? I find that most of the time, we just use the teachings as slogans without knowing what it means. You're not the body, Prabhu. How many people have said that? Hey, Prabhu, come on over here and do this for me. It doesn't make sense. Prabhu means master. We don't understand the teachings. That is the problem. So that's why Maharaj Prachina Parishad, who's a king, he needs to hear from Narada Muni. Narada Muni is preaching to the topmost class of people. This is the what Krishna is teaching in Bhagavad Gita. You preach to the top class, and then the common men will follow. Yad yad acharati shrestas. When you preach to the top class, the common people will follow. If you preach to the common people, the upper classes will not follow. And we see in ISKCON, many times in different countries, we're preaching to the lower classes. We're not going to get the upper classes to follow that. Krishna says, preach to the upper classes. There was once, in 1974, a program arranged by Tamal Krishna Goswami and Vishnu Jan Maharaj in Patna. So they wrote to Srila Prabhupada, you please come and preach. We've arranged a very nice program here. So Prabhupada sent a telegram back. Here's the telegram. If class, I will preach. If mass, you will preach. How many people understood what Prabhupada was saying in that telegram? that if they're high-class people, I'll come and I'll preach to them. But if it's the common people, then you don't need me. You stay and you preach. So Narada Muni is preaching to the top class, the king, that you're not the body. Now you're in a male body, in the next life you're going to be in a female body. They are both illusory. You're both going to be full of birth, death, old age, and disease. You're going to be suffering the pangs of misery, hankering and lamenting. So the disease of the conditioned soul is that you're thinking you're a man, or you're thinking you're a woman, or you're thinking that what will happen to my family members. You don't understand that Krishna is in control. So the 6 symptoms of surrender. The 6 symptoms of surrender. Number 1, you accept whatever is favorable for prosecuting devotional service. Number 2, you avoid anything that's unfavorable for devotional service. And number 3, which is one of my favorite, you understand that Krishna is your ultimate protector. That Krishna is maintaining and protecting us. We have to understand this. So Prabhupada says in this purport that our death cannot be checked at any moment. And if we simply waste time thinking about our material body, our material relatives, then we're using our lives improperly. One's actual duty is to learn how to conquer death. So we have to come to this fully conscious platform where we understand not only Krishna's pastimes, kachanma karma chame divyam, evam yoveti tadvata, that everything about Krishna's pastimes are divine. But we also have to understand that our pastimes are divine when we're in Krishna consciousness. Because then we become the parshad, the eternal associates of the Lord in His pastime of bringing Krishna prema to the conditioned souls. So we can be part of that divine Leela as Krishna's eternal parshads, His eternal associates, when we're in Krishna consciousness. But when we're not, when we're in the bodily concept of life, we're not benefiting anybody. We're not helping Krishna bring His Krishna prema to anybody. We're certainly embarrassing Srila Prabhupada. Just imagine, Srila Prabhupada's in the spiritual world there with Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami and all the pure devotees, and they're watching us and they're seeing ISKCON devotees saying, "You're a woman, you should be following street dharma," and Prabhupada's so embarrassed. And he's expecting us to see everyone as spirit soul. And when we do that, Prabhupada can feel a little bit proud, because then Rupa and Sanatana Goswami will come up to Prabhupada and say, "You did a fantastic job. Just see your disciples. They have fully imbibed your teachings. They are living it. This is wonderful. You did a fantastic job." Prabhupada says, "Well, it wasn't really me. It's all Krishna." But he can feel good about it. But if we're in the bodily concept of life, it's embarrassing for him. It's embarrassing also for us, for the spirit soul within the body. Because when are we going to get it? Last life we were unsuccessful. But we again took birth in this life to carry on our devotional service. How many lives are we to be unsuccessful before we get it? Before we actually say, enough! Finished with this Maya concept. Now I see everyone as spirit soul, and I'm going to behave as the servant of the servant of the servant of everybody. I don't care what body they're in. Because I want to get serious. I want to go back to Godhead. I want Prabhupada to be proud. Yes, here is one of my disciples who got it. Don't you want to make Prabhupada proud? That you understood his teachings and inculcated it in your life? And when, by the mercy of Krishna and Prabhupada, if we go back home, back to Godhead, Prabhupada becomes glorified. All the 6 Goswamis come up to him, "You did fantastic. So many of your disciples coming back home. You Prabhupada, what if he's thinking I wasted my time? I gave him the knowledge to solve all the problems, and still it's the same old, same old. And then Prabhupada wrote so many times, don't make me come back again to deliver you again. Don't fail me so that I have to come back again to deliver you. So we're meant to get serious. And I remember a class that Prabhupada gave, and at first I didn't understand it, but I'll explain it to you. He said, so we have to become fixed up in understanding this philosophy. And then he said, fixed up means solid. Now I didn't know what he meant. Fixed up means solid. For years I thought about it. What does Prabhupada mean? Fixed up means solid. And then one day it hit me. Solid means no holes, no gaps. Not like Swiss cheese. If you don't mind cheese. But solid. Ahoitukiya patiyata, unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service, no gaps for Maya to come in. Fixed up means solid Krishna consciousness. So, I've had these, I guess we can call them realizations. And I'm trying to apply this in my life. And I'm encouraging all of us to apply these things in our life. It will benefit us. It will benefit the movement. It will benefit any human being we come in contact with. And it will certainly benefit Srila Prabhupada, who will feel proud that we actually got it. We're going back home in this lifetime. He won't have to come back again to give us the same teachings again and again and again and again. And this reminds me, I had an idea for a movie. And in the movie, you see the spirit soul taking birth again and again and again and again. One life he's a man, next life he's a woman, next life he's a dog, next life he's a cat. And in the man's body, he's putting down the woman, and in the woman's body, he's talking about we want liberation, we throw off the man yoke. In the dog body, he's chasing the cat, and then the cat, the next life, come back, and the dog, and he's chasing the cat. And everybody in the audience knows it's the same spirit soul, and it's a comedy. Everybody's laughing. That's the movie, the idea I had for a movie. But it's actually true. It's us. This is us. And from the big picture, from Krishna's perspective, that's what he's seeing. Do you want to be the main character in this comedy of errors? Or do you want to get serious? So Narada Muni is preaching to King Prachinaparishad to get serious. Don't become like Puranjan. And this Puranjan, although it's an allegory, Narada Muni is relating it to King Prachinaparishad. Because in your previous life, you didn't go back to Godhead. And in your next life, if you carry on the way you are now, you may become a princess. So it's the same with us. So we got to get serious. We have to get serious. So here, I want to read you the last two lines of the Prabhupada's purport. This Krishna consciousness movement, however, is educating people throughout the world and informing them how to conquer death. Harim vina kasritim taranti. How to conquer death means to go back home, back to Godhead. One cannot conquer death without taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead means to take shelter of His teachings, to take shelter of His holy Dham, to take shelter of His holy name, to take shelter of His holy qualities, to take shelter of His holy forms, to take shelter of His holy prashadam, to take shelter of His holy deity forms, to take shelter of His holy associates, to take shelter of everything that is spiritual, living it in our life, moment to moment to moment to moment. Fixed up means solid, no gap for Maya. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Comments? Yes, Prabhu. Give him the microphone. Speak.
Pass it this way. Pass it this way.
Thank you for
Okay, it's working.
emphasis on the spirit, soul rather than the body.
That is our teaching. Do you agree?
Oh, I'm not disputing. I just have a question. One question. You cited the example of Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur as exemplars of being das, proper servants. So one question came to my mind was, they also observe etiquette.
We also observe etiquette. Why should you not observe etiquette? The etiquette is to see other devotees as either Vaishnavi or Vaishnava, not to see them as the body. That's not etiquette. So what is your point?
I was referring to, you said sannyas is dedicating your work, mind, and body to the service.
It's not my definition. Have you studied Bhagavad Gita?
I have. What I'm saying is, they nonetheless observe the etiquette of the sannyas ashram as well.
What is the etiquette of the sannyasa ashram? Should the sannyasi see spirit souls as women, or should he see them as Vaishnavis, as spirit souls? I ask you the question now. Let's take Prabhupada as an example. Can we use him as an example?
It's your class, Prabhu.
Mother Yamuna Devi Dasi, who Tamal Krishna Goswami told me that in 1970, Prabhupada told him that our Jamuna is at the level of Bhava Bhakti. Okay? She joined in 66. Not by 1970, she was already at the level of Bhava. Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me that personally. Okay? So how did he treat her? So she told, I interviewed her. She told me that in 1968, 3 householder couples were going to go to London to preach. So Prabhupada invited them to come to Montreal where he was staying, and he would train them up for 2 weeks. So they arrived, and he said, now I will give you training so that you can go and be successful in London. And the success will be on focusing on chanting the Maha Mantra. So tomorrow I will pick one of you, and I will train up to lead this chanting of Hare Krishna. Malati was there at the time. You can correct me if I say anything wrong, Malati. So the next day, he chose Jamuna. He didn't choose the 3 men, and one of those 3 men, Mukunda, was a musician, an accomplished musician, but he chose Jamuna. So he said to Jamuna, you come to my room every afternoon at 4 o'clock, and I will teach you the different bhajans, how to sing properly, how to play harmonium, all the melodies, everything. So she did. She would come every day, and for an hour or so, Prabhupada would teach. And those melodies you can hear on that first Radha Krishna Temple album. All the songs that Prabhupada taught her, she sang on that album. So then she told me that after about 8 or 9 days, Prabhupada, after the lesson, was in a very jolly mood. So he said something in a very humorous way. He said, actually, I am sannyasi, and you are a young woman, so we shouldn't even be in a room together. So Jamuna she didn't know how to react to this. She was thinking, how's Prabhupada going? Where's he going on this? I'm a sannyasi, you're a young woman, we should not even be in a room together. Then he said, but you're just like my granddaughter. So it's okay. And he kept seeing her. So I'll tell you another true story. This happened in the 1990s. There was a Vyas Puja celebration for one of my Guru godbrothers in one of the Eastern European countries. I think it was the Czech Republic. In those days, it was before the European Union. So one lady from Germany, who was a disciple of that guru, she got a ride with some devotees to that reunion. And she did really nice service there. And because she was doing extra service for the guru, she stayed a little longer. So when it was time at the end of it, the people that she came with, the car that she drove in, they drove back without her. So then the next day, she came to her Guru Maharaj and said, Guru Maharaj, the people I came with drove home. I have no way to get back to my country. And your assistant told me that you're driving there. Can I drive with you? Can I come in your car? And he said to her, but I'm a sannyasi and you're a woman, so you cannot ride in my car. So she was shocked to hear that. So she said to him, but you write to me in all your letters that I'm your daughter. So what father will not allow his daughter to ride in the same car? Still, he would not do it. We have to follow the etiquette. Then how I will get home? I'm all alone here. It was a great, she was very much distressed by this. Anyway, to make a long story short, she arrived home somehow or other. Then what happened, a few days later, the guru drove back with his brahmachari assistants, and this was before the European Union, so they had to cross the border to get back into Germany. So at the German border, they said, have you got anything to declare? So they said, no, nothing to declare. But I guess because they were devotees, they decided to check them out. So they pulled them aside, they went through their belongings, and they found all the money that the guru had received as guru dakshin, which was over the amount that you have to declare over a certain amount, and he didn't declare it. So they confiscated that money. And the woman told me, and I knew this woman very well, this was her realization. I'm not saying that her realization was correct, but at least this was her realization, that because of the offense that the guru created of seeing her as the body and not as spirit soul, Krishna took away all the guru dakshin. To make a long story short, this woman lost complete faith in her guru and eventually left ISKCON. But if he had treated her as a daughter, because he always wrote, my dear daughter, your well-wisher, but when it came to giving her a ride back, you're on your own. So we have to see each other as spirit soul. We have to see each other as family. In the spiritual world, everybody is family. When you go back home, back to Godhead, you enter into Krishna's family. You become an eternal family member. Now here, if we have 200 or 300 people in this room, we're all family members, but it's completely crowded and no one else can enter. But how many spirit souls can fit into this room? Unlimited. And it's never crowded. So when we go back home, back to Godhead, we're all members of Krishna's family, a spirit soul. There's never a crowd. We're always there. We always have a relationship with Krishna. And unless we start living this consciousness, we're not going to fit in to the spiritual world. You can't take your bogus material consciousness with you. And then another final comment is that if the men are so negative to the ladies that coming back in a woman's body is the most horrible thing, then in your next life you're not going to come back as a gopi because that's a woman's body. Everyone's goal is to come back in either gopi, manjari, either an elderly gopi as Purnamasi, medium level gopi as Yashodamai, teenage gopi like Radharani, or adolescent gopi as a manjari. And unless we develop this mood, if we remain rigid that we're the man and you're the woman, you're defeating your opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead. So the proper etiquette is to see each other as spirit soul and treat each other as family members. We don't believe in Vedic sannyas. If you read what is Vedic sannyas, the Vedic sannyasis leave home. They don't associate with the family members, but our sannyasis associate with the family. This is cool guru, cool sannyas. They're all part of our family. We're relating to them as family, and some of them relate to us as family, but those who don't relate as family, they miss the whole point of it, what Krishna consciousness is. So the proper etiquette is to follow the teachings in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. That's the proper etiquette, not try to artificially impose the Vedic concept. We don't live in the Vedic concept. I'll tell you what the Vedic concept is. Draupadi had 5 husbands. The rule was that if she was with one of the husbands, no other husband could come and interrupt them because your relationship is intimate. So she had an intimate relationship with 5 different husbands. That's Vedic, okay? Now, Arjuna, something happened, an emergency, and he had to see Yudhisthira. But then he broke that bond. Immediately Yudhisthira said, I don't care what the reason is, you now have to go 1 year traveling, what do you call it? Sorry? For failure, he has to go on Tirtha Parikrama. So he went on Tirtha Parikrama for 1 year. He had to leave the family union. But when he came back 1 year later, he brought 3 wives with him. He brought Chitrangana, he brought Ulupi, and he brought Subhadra. That's Vedic, okay? That's the Vedic lifestyle. In the Vedas, when Krishna entered Dwarka, everybody came out to see him. Even the prostitutes came out to glorify him. Prabhupada explained that Krishna smiled at everybody. No one thought that these are the prostitutes. Oh, get out of here. We don't like you. What are you doing here? Beat them. Put them in the leper colony. No. Everybody was seen as spirit soul. That is proper etiquette. That is Vaishnava etiquette. So we're talking about Vaishnavi etiquette. That's my understanding. I hope. Did that helpful, Prabhu? Did I help you? Did I explain it? Thank you. Who's next?
Vaiyasaki.
You and then you. Controversy means that there's misconceptions. That's why you have to clarify.
So one thing I'd like to clarify is the internal versus external consciousness. When Srila Prabhupada applied for the passport, he did not put down his father's name as Lord Krishna and his address in Golok Vrindavan. He put down his father's name, his father's
Bhakti
Gaur Mohan
Saraswati.
Dey. Let me answer that question before you go on. Gaur Mohan Dey was a Vaishnava. He wasn't a conditioned soul. He was a Vaishnava. Okay, so Prabhupada was still following the internal consciousness.
My question is, and actually comment is, that we have to follow the etiquettes. In the Vedic culture, sannyasi is supposed to have the highest standard for rest of people to follow. And the difference between brahmachari and sannyasi is a brahmachari can get married anytime he chooses to. For a sannyasi, the door is permanently shut. Unfortunately, we created a society where a sannyasi can get married anytime he wants to. And that is bogus. And because of this kind of society and mentality, we created that. So that is to be addressed.
addressed.
Okay, so I'm going to address that. First of all, everybody who's on the path of Bhakti Yoga has to be at the level of Brahmanishtam. Why only sannyasis? You're saying sannyasis, everyone else should be in Maya? That's ridiculous. Everybody should be on Brahmanishtam. Just like I said, Brahmabhuta Prasanatma, this is the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. It doesn't matter what your position is, whether you're a child, or a woman, or a man, or a Durjan, or Sajjan, or a criminal, whatever. Prabhupada's giving us the highest teaching, and who cares what you are previously? Who cares what your prarabdha karma is? We don't care what your body is, because you are not the body. You are not the body. Therefore, don't make distinctions on something of which you are not. That's ridiculous. Okay, so that's my answer. No, he was next. He was next.
Sir, my question is, the life which you are leading, as you said, we don't know how we life in the past we have been there, that's why we are in this. What is and how to get this movement?
How to get it? Sadhana. So what is our sadhana? Our sadhana is to live the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. How to live the teachings of Bhagavad Gita? First you have to study. If you don't study, then you won't know. Now anybody who's been to university knows how to study. They study all these nonsense books, they make notes, they get markers, they mark all the points. That's called studying. If we don't study the Bhagavad Gita the way we studied the nonsense teachings that we did in university, then we're wasting our human life. You know how to study. You've done it. Why you're not studying Gita? We study the nonsense philosophy, but the real teachings we don't study. This is insanity, in my opinion. That's crazy. We have to study, and the very first teaching is you're not the body. What Narada Muni is teaching here to King Prachinavarma is the same teaching that Krishna taught Arjuna in the second chapter. In other words, it's your 2 + 2 = 4 of spiritual life. You're not the body. Okay? So we have to study. He's next, and then you.
Thank you for the nice class. I don't think that anyone here is really advocating that we develop bodily consciousness. It doesn't seem like that. But my question is that Arjuna, having accepted Krishna as his guru in Bhagavad Gita, is not considered sinful, even though he kills his family members or fights his family members.
Right.
And logically, it seems equally applicable that it's not necessarily bodily cause of his life if someone adopts the order of the spiritual master to establish Varnashram, Daini Varnashram karma within Islam. Neither is it mundane because the order of the spiritual master is never in favor of the bhakti.
Okay, you've made many points, so let me try and address them before I forget it. Your first point was that no one's advocating the bodily concept of life. That's true. But no one's living to that ideal either. So even we don't advocate it, we don't live up to it. We say you're not the body, Prabhu, but I'm dealing with you on the bodily platform. Even though I say you're not the body. Now I may say I'm not the body. And Prabhupada will say I'm not the body. Is that the same teaching? Is it the same teaching? How many people say it's yes, the same teaching? How many people say no, it's not the same teaching? How many people don't understand the question and haven't got a clue? It's not the same teaching because I'm saying I'm not the body, I'm just parroting. Prabhupada's saying I'm not the body, he's living it, full realization, and that instruction goes deep into the heart. So it's not the same teaching, it's only the same words. So that's the first thing. The second thing, Arjuna. Once he accepted Krishna's teaching, then what he did was not considered sinful. This is true. Sarvadharma parijajam mamekam sharanam bhajam. First, you approach me, give up all other dharmas. That's what he's telling Arjuna, he's telling us too. Surrender unto me. Aham tvam sarvapapebhyo. I'll take away all your sinful reactions. it doesn't mean that we don't create any more sinful reactions. We may still do it, but they don't come to us, they come to Krishna. So he takes them. So I may do something that deserves a sinful reaction, Krishna takes them. That's what he says to Arjuna, don't worry about it. If there's any sinful reactions, you won't get the reaction, I'll get the reaction, and I can handle it, so don't worry about it. And Prabhupada, the example that Prabhupada gave in this connection was of a soldier in the army. When you join the army and the government sends you out to war, you can kill so many people and there's no sinful reaction. In fact, the more people you kill, you come back, you get a medal. He was a big hero. But once you leave the army, if you harm one person, shoot one person, immediately you go to jail. So the point is that when we surrender to Krishna and do everything as a sacrifice for Krishna, then no reaction comes to us. But if we're not, if actually what we're doing is for our own benefit, our own self-aggrandizement, our own prestige, our own, what the word is, for our own benefit, but I'm thinking of, for our own artha, for our own benefit, love, our own. If we're doing it for us, so that I can be recognized in the society that I'm making advancement, I'm now in this position. I now have this upadi. Sarvupadi vinirmuktam. That's what the verse I was thinking of. In ISKCON, we're giving upadis day and night. Every month where we invent new upadis to give people more and more upadis. But the teaching is sarvupadi vinirmuktam. Become free from these designations which are only based on your body. Just like we have Hindu, Christian, and Jew. And it's only based on your body. I was born in a Hindu family, so now I'm a Hindu. Born in a Christian family, I'm a Christian. Born in a Jewish body, I'm a Jew. It's all a bodily designation. But Jesus wasn't a Christian. Moses wasn't a Jew. Muhammad wasn't a Muslim. They were preaching that you're all spirit soul. They were preaching surrender to God. They didn't preach that now you're a Christian, now you're a Jew, now you're a Muslim. So Krishna is teaching that eternal understanding, that you're all spirit soul. And what happens is when a great personality comes, like Srila Prabhupada, and gives us this teaching, as soon as he leaves, we pervert it. It's a perverted reflection. We can't live up to the same standard that he was at. But we become expert at repeating what he said, because anything you do for 40 years, you become expert at it. So we become expert at giving class, expert at doing puja, expert at leading kirtan, expert at distributing books. But if I'm seeing everyone as the body, I haven't made any advancement. I'm still on the platform of staying in the same place, because when I came to Krishna consciousness, I was seeing everyone as a body, and I still see it after 40 years. I haven't made any advancement, though I become expert in these other things. He was next.
Hare Krishna. First off, pray for the blessings of all the Vaishnavas, that I may speak properly in a way that will be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, all the Vaishnavas. Krishna. So I have a couple questions here. I can do it one at a time. Okay. So the first one, you made the point that we shouldn't treat people on the basis of the body, or in other words, on the basis of material conditioning, because the body that we're in is a reflection of our material conditioning.
That's the Vedic teaching of Prabhupada.
So you gave the example of Prabhupada and Munadeva, the relationship that they had. I would have to say that this could be perhaps an exception. If we look at, for instance, Prabhupada's relationship with Gauragovinda Maharaj, he discussed with Gauragovinda Maharaj topics that he did not discuss with other devotees. Now, why is that? Because because Gaur Govinda Maharaj was on a higher platform than the other devotees, so he treated the devotees on the platform that they were on.
This is natural. This is natural. So this is why Narada Muni is preaching to Queen Parshinabarishad about Puranja. Because Queen Parshinabarishad is a king, so he's giving the example of Puranja, another king. You preach to people to what they can relate to, and what they can understand, and what they can imbibe. So there's a general teaching, which is for everybody, and then there's a deeper teaching, which is not for everybody. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gave Prabhupada gave the general teaching. In Srimad Bhagavatam, he also gave a general teaching, but in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, he gave a deeper teaching. Those who haven't studied Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, they miss out on the deeper teaching. And this process is called Digdarshan. You show the direction, you point the direction. So although Prabhupada doesn't get deeply into Raga Atmika Tattva, he points the direction in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says, such and such books must be read. Every Vaishnava should read this book like this. He shows the direction. This is called Digdarshan. But there are many people who never read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so they think that when other Vaishnavas follow this path, that they're off. It's like, because they're what's the word, defective, they're studying, they haven't studied the whole teaching as given by Prabhupada. So they think that 2 + 2 = 4 is the entire teaching. Someone may think that algebra is the entire teaching. Someone may think that calculus is the entire teaching. But theoretical mathematics, which is beyond all these three, encompasses all these things. So it's the same with this tattva. You go deeper and deeper. So Prabhupada can explain to Gaur Govinda Maharaj certain tattvas in 1975 and 76, because 1975 is when Gaur Govinda Maharaj took sannyas, and then Prabhupada went to visit him in 1977. But that doesn't preclude other devotees of Prabhupada who he's guiding from within, because this is a mystical process, it's not a material process. That when he shows the way, Digdarshan, and we follow that we're going to become enlightened. Because Krishna says, Tene Brahma Hridaya, that Krishna enlightened Brahma from within the heart. We sing every morning, Chakrutano Dilaye, Janme Janme Prabhu, you say, Divya Jnana, Hridaya Prakashita, that divine knowledge is manifested from the heart. Also, Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sarvishto, Krishna says, I'm in the heart. Matas Nitya Jnana Pavancha. From me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So we should, Tesham Satata Yoganam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogantam. Krishna takes care, he gives us that knowledge. So if we're thinking only this person has and someone else doesn't have, this is also the bodily concept of life. We're also thinking that it's a material process. It's a mystical, spiritual process. It goes way beyond the body. So that's my answer to the first question. What's your second question?
My second question is, you said that we should live on the basis of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and thus we should more or less ignore material designations.
Well, okay, so what is the material designation? That you're the body. That you're a brahmachari. That's a material designation, because in your next life you may be a brahmachari. So from the big picture, it's a material designation based on your body. So how should we deal? We should deal with people as Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, that their spirit soul on the path, but due to their prarabdha karma that they got from the previous life, they're now in this situation. But that's a temporary situation. It's not their eternal situation. They're Nitya Krishna Das. Is it not? So we have to, if we want to be in the Nitya Krishna consciousness, we have to deal with them as Nitya Krishna Das. We have to learn this. If we don't learn it in this life, Krishna will or learn it in the life after that. But until you learn it, you don't go back home, back to Godhead, because you won't fit in that. Because everyone there does have that Nitya Krishna consciousness. So you have to bring it with you. That's what qualifies you to go back home, back to Godhead. Not that you're in Maya now, and you go back and all of a sudden the Maya is dispelled. You have to dispel your Maya.
Right.
It's not done for you. You have to do it. That's what you have to do. And that's another misconception of ISKCON. We say you're not the doer. Well, if I'm not the doer, who's chanting my 16 rounds? If I'm not the doer, who's chanting the 16 rounds? Of course I'm the doer. Of course I'm chanting the 16 rounds. Of course I'm making advancement on moving forward or on moving backwards. Another misconception that I'm not the enjoyer. Of course you're an enjoyer. You can only enjoy when you're connected to Krishna, the supreme enjoyer. Otherwise you're the sufferer. That's the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. Everyone is a sufferer. Only the devotees are enjoyers. Susukam kartum atyakam. Pratyakshamagamam dharmam. When you have that direct experience that I'm spirit soul, then susukam kartum, everything I do is joyfully performed. Brahmabhuta prasanatma. I'm on the platform of Brahmabhuta, when I'm spirit soul, I'm experiencing prasanatma. I'm always blissful. Why? Because I'm always connected to Krishna as his servant in one way or the other. There's so many different processes. Okay?
Right. So the question I was speaking up to was that if we want to see an example of living according to Bhagavad Gita, it's always stated that Lord Chaitanya gave the perfect example of being a devotee. Correct?
Lord Chaitanya he came to set the example. He set the example.
So if we look in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we can see that Lord Chaitanya did relate to people based on if they were a man or a woman.
Well, let's see if that's true. Let's analyze. Let's see if that's true. As soon as Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, he wanted to go to Vrindavan. But Nityananda didn't want him to leave, so he brought him back to Advaita Acharya's house. And in Advaita Acharya's house were all the residents of Navadvip. The men and the women. Sita Thakurani was there. Mother Sachi was there. And as soon as Lord Chaitanya saw Mother Sachi, what did he do? He offered his Dandavat pranams to her. And he said, "You are my mother. You are the owner of this body. You have given me this body. Therefore, you are the proprietor of this body. Now, I have unilaterally taken sannyas. This is a great offense on my part because the body belongs to you. So now you tell me, what should I do with this body? Where should I go?" She said, "Then go to Puri." So he went to Puri. So he treated her as spirit soul. There was another situation in Jagannath Puri. It was a big festival day, and everyone was packed into the temple, and this one woman couldn't see. So she climbed up on Lord Chaitanya's back so she could see better. And all of Lord Chaitanya's associates afterwards, especially Damodar Pandit, because Damodar Pandit will always find fault. He was the one who was always, the Vedic, we gotta do the Vedic. And Lord Chaitanya said to him, "What are you talking about? She's spirit soul. If I had as much enthusiasm to see Lord Jagannath as her, I would be blissful." This is real Krishna consciousness.
So then what about examples such as Lord Chaitanya heard one woman singing?
Because the thing is this.
Wanted to chase after her. And,
the thing is that you have to understand. She was singing as a woman, not as a spirit soul. She was trust.
I can trust Prabhupada.
It's stated that when Lord Chaitanya taught, that he didn't want to hear the voice of a woman. He didn't say, "I didn't want to hear the voice of a Vaishnavi." So you trust Prabhupada, so let me give you an example. Prabhupada explained this. One of my godbrothers wrote a letter to Prabhupada saying that he read this verse of Lord Chaitanya. So he wrote a letter to Srila Prabhupada every morning. I'm a brahmachari. Every morning I'm hearing this woman singing Govinda Madhipurisham. I'm not supposed to hear the voice of a woman because I'm a brahmachari. Prabhupada wrote back, I am sitting here in Vrindavan, and every morning we are hearing this song with great relish. So what is your problem? And if you can't hear the voice of a woman, then go to the forest. But if you go to the forest, how you will preach? Because 50% of the people in the cities are ladies. So he smashed him. He was on the bodily concept of life. Prabhupada was listening to Jamuna singing, and he said we should listen to this for the next 10,000 years. Because she's not a woman, she's a devotee on the Bhagavatam platform of Bhagavatam. Okay? So we have to understand that. If you're singing Jamuna as a woman, I won't hear her voice like fallen godmother, because he left, he blew it a few years later. Then your destination is not very good. So now he had a question. We can't have one person monopolizing it. It's his agenda, and then he after that. Thank you very much. Very good questions.
Hare Krishna. Usually, it's very nice class, and you gave the example of Prabhupada respecting the Yamuna Mataji, but we also heard the past time when Prabhupada, when it was his own sister, Bhavatarani Mataji, then he asked his servant to be there inside the room. He said, Sannyasi is not supposed to be there alone. So my thing is that can somebody respect women from within, but externally maintain that when somebody knows that I am not so strong, so just to protect myself, I'll maintain a distance, but respect from within.
This is true. This is true. So for the weak disciples, Prabhupada said like that. Just like when you have a child, you say to the child, don't cross the street unless you're in the hand of an adult. You have to protect the children. But that is not an eternal instruction that when I grow up, that I can't cross the street without holding the hand of my mother. If someone thinks that that's an eternal instruction, they're foolish. So similarly, there's instructions that are meant for time, place, and circumstance. This is called Desh Kala Pratma. So if someone's in the bodily concept of life, then they should never be alone with a woman until they start seeing that she's not a woman, but she's Nitya Krishna Das. So it's like crossing the street. You can't cross the street if you're still a child. You have the mentality of a child. So if you're in Krishna consciousness, but you still have the mentality of a Kanishta Adhikari, then you have to follow the rules for Kanishta Adhikari. But what did Prabhupada say about that? You have to very quickly get off the platform of Kanishta Adhikari and come to Madhyam, because the Kanishta Adhikari platform is very shaky. You can fall down at any point. It's like walking on thin ice. At any moment, the ice can give, you fall in. So we all have to come to the Madhyam platform where our Krishna consciousness is solid. So the Madhyam platform is, we have to see everyone as spirit soul. We can't be at the same level as Kanishta. Okay, he hasn't had a chance yet. Okay. How long can this go on for? Is there a rule?
So we just started with just last statement that Madhyama platform see everyone like spirit soul. As far as I heard from Srila Prabhupada, the Madhyama platform is see for the vision and use ignorant and so that's as far as I know that it's from Uttama, I repeat everyone.
So let me explain that. You see Krishna, because the Madhyamadikari knows Sambandha-gyan, but he also knows Abhideya Tattva. So you see four different types of levels. You see the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Spirit Soul, Krishna, and you worship Him. You see the Vaishnavas, and you make friends with them. That's what Prabhupada says. You make friends with them. It's not that certain we make friends with the others that are right. No, you make friends with all the Vaishnavas. You see the conditioned souls, and you preach to them. You give them your compassion. You see them also as spirit soul, but they're in ignorance, so you use your compassion to preach to them. And you see the envious spirit souls who are so covered over that you can't help them, and you just keep your distance so that you don't get involved and they commit offenses. So in the Madhyam platform, you see everybody on the spiritual platform and how to relate to each one of that categories. That's called Abhideya. understand Sambandha Tattva, which is a very deep subject, and only then can you understand how to relate in all these situations, which is Abhideya Tattva. Then you will get Prema Prayoja, the ultimate goal. The thing is that we haven't learned Sambandha Tattva, and therefore we can't apply Abhideya Tattva, because we haven't studied Chaitanya Charitamrita, where these things are explained in detail.
Yeah, Prabhu, thank you, but still that means that Madhyama discriminates.
No, it's not discrimination. It's okay, you can say discrimination, but that's a negative word. A different is evaluation. You evaluate what is the situation, what is their position, how can I benefit them? If they're envious, I can't benefit them. You recognize that, you understand that evaluation, so you keep your distance. Those who are innocent but in ignorance, you evaluate that I can actually help them, and so you preach to them, you give them your compassion. Those who are Vaishnavas, you evaluate, I can be friends with these. These are people on the path with me. They're my family members. If I can't be friends with my family members, who can I be friends with? And of course, Krishna you worship. So it's not discrimination, it's evaluation. There's a difference.
Well, you can use words that you might show raw, but use that word and give more better example. You don't embrace the tiger, you see him as spiritual soul. You don't embrace the tiger.
You don't embrace the tiger.
If you see him as spiritual soul, so that's
you don't embrace the tiger because the tiger doesn't see you as spirit soul. It's a one-way conception. However, if the tiger is hungry, you can put some food in his cage to benefit him. Just like there's many cows, street cows walking along the street. Now, they can't relate to me as spirit soul, but I can relate to them as spirit soul. And so I feed them. I'll buy some bananas or some chapatis and feed them because they're starving, they're hungry. My wife carries a brush wherever she goes and she brushes these cows, gives them love, and they're in ecstasy. It's a one-way relationship because they're animals, but we see that they're very dear to Krishna. Very dear to Krishna. So we evaluate these based on Krishna consciousness, not based on the body. That's what I'm saying.
Humor, if you don't mind. You just, because I'm going, I have a question related to class, but you mentioned some things in answering the questions, so I just ask them. You mentioned these two situations when Lord Chaitanya apparently don't follow the rules of sannyas.
I didn't say he didn't follow the rules of sannyas. I said that he followed, that everyone is spirit soul, and actually he gave up the sannyas ashram. Nobody after Lord Chaitanya in our sampradaya took sannyas. He stopped it and he instead had people taking Babaji Vesh. Nobody wore saffron for 400 years. And that's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur could not take sannyas from anybody in our Gaudiya Vaishnava sampradaya because there wasn't anybody for 400 years. When Lord Chaitanya saw that everyone was thinking, I'm sannyasi, he said, this is not good consciousness, we stop it. And that's why you see on the altar the 6 Goswamis, all Bhaktivinoda Thakur, everybody, they're wearing white. Okay?
Okay, that's another topic. I say, because...
You know what, Prabhu? Maybe it's time to chant Hare Krishna. Why don't you and I have a one-on-one talk, so we don't, other people can...
Good idea.
Okay, if you think it's time to stop, no problem.
But no, you can come and speak to me, just privately.
No problem. But the problem is that people have to hear. Okay, if it's time to stop, I will stop.
If they want to hear, they'll come here and listen to us.
My question doesn't matter.
No, you can come and speak. We'll speak here, and they can chant Hare Krishna. Both can go on at the same time. Is that okay? Do you accept that?
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Very well. Come here.